The Inquisition has always provided excellent opportunities to create some wild and wonderful conversions, and it's probably one of my more consistently requested conversions. So I finally caved and let you guys decide on which Ordo Minoris I should tackle. I'm Pete the Wargamer, and today I'll be showing you how to convert an Inquisitor of the Ordo Chronos. The Ordo Chronos are probably one of the more interesting Ordos. They are tasked with investigating incidents of time travel or time manipulation, something that, due to the unpredictable nature of the warp, is not an uncommon occurrence in the 41st millennium. Their job is to ensure that the current timeline is maintained and that no one has ideas to jump back a few thousand years to tip the balance of power in their favour. As such, I wanted my Inquisitor to not be the usual Neo-Witch Hunter type. He isn't tasked with fighting demons or purging heresy, so his equipment didn't need to fit the usual themes. I wanted the equipment to look practical and high-tech, so I settled on the Palanite Subjugators as my basis. The bulky segmented armour fits the Inquisitor's 4+ armour save nicely, and doesn't look like a modern equivalent of an old suit of armour. So I took one of the torsos and a pair of the legs from that kit and assembled them together. This would form the basis of the conversion. Next, I needed some arms. I already had an idea of what I wanted the hands to be, so I needed arms that would A, fit the subjugated body, and B, wouldn't already have hands. Luckily for me, Palanite Enforcer kit is perfect for this. I took the pair of arms from that kit that would commonly be used for the squad leader. The first hand that I wanted to attach was from the Free Guild Wizard set. While the rose and thorn stylings wouldn't quite fit as a regular item, this hourglass and hand position would be perfect to use as a psychic projection, the hourglass being the symbol of this order in my own headcanon. When I compared the hand against the arm, I found that the wrist was far too long and wasn't quite at the right angle to hold this up to the Inquisitor's face. So I began to trim down the wrist and adjust the hand's angle with a series of trims. I would test the fit periodically to ensure I was making the right cuts and would then adjust accordingly. I continued this until I was happy with how the two components fit and then glued them together. After I had allowed the glue on the wrist to dry, I could then check the fit of the arm. While the arm worked perfectly against the torso piece in its default pose, the hand was far too close to the face. So I needed to make a couple of more trims to the shoulder pad that would allow me to slightly angle the arm down and therefore increase the distance from the hand and the face. With this done, the arm could be glued to the body. With the right arm in place, the next area to tackle was the left. Again, I used an Enforcer arm, but for the weapon I chose one of the flintlock pistols from the Free Guild Pistolers kit. Against the more modern theming of this model, an Archaeotech weapon such as this would not only stand out, but also give the model a hint that the weapon may have been acquired from the past. To remove the pistol hand from the arm, I made two cuts. One was diagonal against the wrist and went about halfway through, and the other was parallel, meeting in the middle. This allowed me to keep the pistol handle intact. Once cut, all I needed to do was to clean up the cut a little. After testing the fit against the arm, I found that I again needed to make a few more trims, this time to the handle of the pistol. Once the hand was fitting flush against the arm, I was able to glue them together before gluing the arm to the body. Next, I could start thinking about adding a head, but before I could do so, I needed to add the subjugated neck. However, as I had chosen a head that already came with a neck, I needed to very carefully clip away and then smooth out the neck of this component. I paid very careful attention here so that I didn't accidentally damage the collar as I did so. With the component prepped, the neck could be glued to the torso. For the head, I wanted to choose something that would give the Inquisitor a more characterful appearance, so I went with one of the bear heads from the Sequitors kit, which is arguably the best source for human heads with interesting hairstyles. Even though I had cut away the subjugator's neck, I still needed to trim the bottom of this head's neck in order to ensure that it was not only too tall, but also that it had a flat surface that would be better for gluing. Once I was happy with the join, I glued the head so that it faced towards the hourglass. At this stage, my Inquisitor was looking much more whole. He had his arms and his head attached, but I didn't feel that the armour was bulky enough to convey his rank and status amongst his warband. I took inspiration from EOD suits and grabbed myself one of the rounded shoulder pads from the Cataphrone Breaches kit. When I held it upside down against the chest, I was surprised with how similar in size it was to the existing neck armour. With a few trims to create a more flush contact point between the armour and the component, I was ready to glue it into place. The result was a much bulkier looking set of armour. So far, my Inquisitor only really has one allusion to his time-policing nature, which isn't really enough. So I needed something else. As time travel in the 40k universe is almost always tied to the warp, and this is also the primary route for teleportation, the teleporter backpacks from the Grey Knight Interceptors caught my attention. As these are used to transport the Grey Knights through warp space, it's not too much of a stretch of the imagination for this technology to be used to help control time by passing through the warp. So I began by clipping off the 4 rods and trimming the cuts to create a smooth surface. Gluing these directly to the torso would not only be tricky, but it will also make them extremely fragile, so I decided to pin them into place. I began this process by drilling 4 holes into the back of the torso, 2 at the top and 2 a little further down. I then drilled similar holes into the base of each of the teleporter rods. Using some 1mm thick steel wire, I glued it into the hole of one of the rods using some super glue. I let this dry for a few moments before clipping the wire and leaving a few millimeters protruding. This exposed wire was then glued into the holes that I drilled into the torso. I repeated these steps for each of the 3 remaining rods, placing the longer rods at the top and the shorter ones at the bottom, positioning them so that they were slightly splayed away from each other. With the bulk of the model completed, all that was needed to do was to add a few extra bits. This was a good way to help bulk out the model and also to add some extra details. I had chosen a few pouches from the Space Marine kit, along with a couple of components from the Intercessor sprue. It wasn't particularly important which items I had chosen here, just whatever you have to hand in your own bits box. Finally, the Inquisitor needed some purity seals. These are available in a whole bunch of different kits, and when I gathered 3 of them, I sprinkled them across the model in various points. And with that, the model was completed. All it needed was a base and a coat of paint, which left me with this. So here we have the completed Ordo Chronos Inquisitor. I opted for a blue colour scheme for this model, partly because I fancied painting some blue, but also because, you know, the TARDIS is blue and I had to include a Doctor Who reference in there somewhere. I also had a lot of fun experimenting with some OSL from the psychic projection of the Hourglass. Overall, I'm really pleased with how this model came out. Inquisitors offer a lot of freedom in conversions, and I felt that I was really able to make this model my own. So if you're looking to create your own Inquisitors, even if you're not following this guide to the letter, hopefully I've given you a few tips or ideas that you can incorporate into your own kit bashes. So, as always, I just want to say a big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters and the folks who use my affiliates links. Your help is always greatly appreciated. If you like this video, then check out my other conversion guides, and please do consider subscribing. If you're looking to recreate this miniature, then to source your extra bits, head on over to Bitsbox. However, if it's full kits that you're looking for, then be sure to check out Firestorm Games. Links to both of these can be found in the description below. And so until next time, thanks for watching, and goodbye.